Hi, guys. Oh, my God, it's Ugly Bob. What the hell are you doing here?
Hello, we're back for part 2 of my series of Symphony Sublime reviews. Missed the alliteration there, oh well. We're focusing on the Saturn port of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This game came out in 1998, and given that it had been a year or so from the release of this game on the PlayStation, people might have expected more. But the problem with that is it was kind of unknown because this game was only released in Japan. The Saturn was pretty much dead or close to dead in the United States by this time, so the game wasn't released over here. Frankly, I think it would have it would have compromised the awesome art for the cover that is far superior to the PlayStation version. Would have been funny to see like a huge US Saturn case with some kind of design. It would have been pretty weird. Anyway, this game really wasn't discovered by me until well into 2003, I believe, because even if you do a conventional search on Symphony of the Night, this game will not come up being listed under its Japanese name. So I kind of heard about it after the fact as one of the Saturn's better games to import. And they're really not kidding, because this game, in my opinion, is better in pretty much every way. It is better in less conventional ways than the PlayStation version. It really is like the ultimate version for Castlevania completists. The improvements it has don't seem to be too vast at first, but there's a lot of little things that make the difference. These little things, I'll start off with describing the obvious improvements, and if you can put up with me, I'll try and talk about the little things that I think are really neat too. The most obvious is that you can play as the additional character Maria, which is the whole purpose of all this footage, just to show you how badass she is. Not quite Alucard badass. I mean, as you can see in the beginning, she has to ride a horse. What's up with that? Not ultra fast. Despite that handicap, you can see from some of her special moves later in this video that she can more than hold her own. Besides Maria and the inherent ability to play as her, it's nice that you can also play as Richter without having to beat the game first or enter any special codes. He's selectable. Richter also has an alternate outfit that's like when you encounter him in the Colosseum. He's wearing a nice robe, and it's just kind of a neat alternate option. There's lots of new items for Alucard in this. The ones that stand out the most are the running shoes, which make you run a little faster. The cloak that randomly switches colors. I've never found it, but it's definitely cool to check out. Not as cool as the Joseph's cloak, because, I mean, you can give Dracula a pink cloak, and that's awesome right there. I already talked about that, though. Another good item that you can find, a new item that you can find, is the Alucard Spear, which you get at the end of one of the new areas in the inverted castle, and it's got a quarter forward circle or a Duke in motion attack that's much like the secret attack from the rapier. It's not as powerful as the Chrysogrim, obviously. Nothing is, but it's still very fun to use and worth getting. There are more items, but most of them are pretty insignificant, and if you really wanted a list, I suppose you could go online and find some. Another thing probably the thing that's most important about this version are the two added areas. You have the Haunted Prison and the Underground Garden. Now, there's speculation about these two sites, especially the Underground Garden, because you can see the latch that leads to it clearly in the PlayStation version. That one seems to be regarded almost as an unfinished area. It's like, what happened? I guess they just didn't get around to programming it. And the Haunted Prison is in the middle. It starts at the end of the hallway that leads where you get a lot of the money, and you'll fight a Cthulhu-like creature and some flea men, and you'll enter, you just go up and around, and then you'll come out near the underground sewers, or whatever. I'm not good at describing the areas. The haunted prison is kind of a disappointment in that it's short and it doesn't have any bosses. The only thing that's really awesome about it is some unique enemies like the spear guard and the great music. It's quite haunting and possibly even the most disturbing tune Yamane has ever composed. The the underground garden said best in the... It was said best by my friend Steve. This is definitely the Japanese version, and this is definitely the Japanese. My friend Steve said it best when he said, "Yep, this is definitely the Japanese area," and by that he meant like the enemies were just so bizarre and weird. It's like you wouldn't usually find this kind of stuff in an American game, and it's awesome. You got like tree demons and deranged hedge clippers, Venus flytraps, all throughout both the regular and inverted version of this stage, and the backgrounds are quite imaginative too. It was a clever little design. Makes me really wonder why Aiga isn't fond of this. Could it simply be jealousy that Casey Nagotia of Castlevania Legends fame finished this up and were able to implement it quite successfully when he should have taken the chance himself? I mean, he's quoted as saying that he doesn't like these changes, and I don't see how any fan of Castlevania really couldn't like them. And now, I think I've covered most of the changes, and let's get to the more subtle things. The graphics in this game, they're considered to be inferior to the PlayStation version, but that really requires a keen eye. The only thing that's really obvious is the lack of transparencies. You can see that in the mist transformation. But there are a lot of things that are also better in the graphics about this. For instance, there's a lot less slowdown in the game. The most familiar being the sword familiar with the turning into mist. There's no longer any slowdown there. But slowdown isn't eliminated completely. It occurs in some areas where it doesn't occur in the PlayStation version. Now, don't think that's the fault of the Saturn's hardware. That's just sometimes a programming glitch. Hell, the Xbox 360 version, which we'll talk about briefly, even has some other odd glitches that neither of these have, so it's not like, ooh, the Saturn's inferior, that's the reason, blah blah blah. Now this is strictly for the Castlevania completist. The Saturn, demonstrating its superior RAM capability, does it in some very subtle ways that I probably am emphasizing too much, but I feel like it anyway. When Alucard is walking in the PlayStation version, his shadow that follows him will eventually disappear. That does not happen in the Saturn version. And again, I'm overstating this, but I think it's just part of the awesomeness that is Alucard and a clear demonstration of the superior 2D capability of the Saturn. In all, this really is a great port of the game, and I definitely recommend it to Castlevania completists. And it's really too bad it never saw a US release, especially with the obvious opportunity of the 360 Xbox Live Arcade version or the forthcoming PSP port. It could be, like I said, just a matter of pride or something else. This game also has some other extended bonus modes, like it's usually known in Japan as an Omak mode or Omaki. I don't really know how to pronounce it, which has illustrations of the game and also a music box. Now, usually that's not a big deal in games, at least to me, but it is here because it showcases several versions of classic tunes that are both found in the game and not found. There's some very good renditions of Bloody Tears, Beginning, and Vampire Killer, as well as some other unique tunes. You got some jazzy renditions. I remember listening to it with my friend Steve again, and we would grimace or smile. It depends on hearing it. At different times of hearing them, and that's really the mark of Yamane's work, that she can affect you, or her range will affect you in all different ways, and it's definitely a neat little extra. Oh, and lastly, when it comes to the music, is in the new areas you have, besides the haunted prison I mentioned, the Vampire Killer is featured for Maria and Richter in place of Dracula's castle near the intro. You have Bloody Tears for the very predator-looking like night boss in the underground garden, and a few other tunes are featured. And I'm about to make a bad joke, so please make fun of me if you want to. I deserve it. There's another tune that it doesn't have a name listed anywhere, so I made up a bad one. It is used when Maria fights Shaft at the end of the game, so I very suitably called it Maria Takes Shaft. Ha ha. That's right up there with everything's funnier and slow. Everything's funny when it's sped up. Refer to the episode of The Simpsons.